Marcus Ward ripped the helicopter door off its hinges with his bare hands. Fire exploded behind him. Metal screamed. The billionaire, inside blood streaming down her face, looked him dead in the eyes and screamed, "Leave me! I'm not worth saving." She didn't know. She couldn't know. The woman begging him to let her die was the daughter of the man who killed his wife. 10 years of rage. 10 years of grief. 10 years of planning revenge. And now fate had placed her life in his hands. What Marcus did next will change everything you believe about forgiveness. Comment your city below. Let's see how far this story travels. Marcus Ward's hands were burning. He could feel the skin on his palms blistering as he gripped the twisted metal of the helicopter door. Smoke filled his lungs. Heat pressed against his face like a physical wall. And somewhere inside that inferno, a woman was screaming. "Get out of here!" she shouted. "The fuel tank is going to blow!" Marcus didn't answer. He braced his boot against the frame and pulled harder. The door groaned bent and finally tore free. He threw it aside and reached into the flames. She was pinned. The co-pilot's seat had collapsed forward, trapping her legs. Blood ran down her temple, mixing with soot and melted snow. Her eyes were wild with pain and something else, acceptance. "Listen to me," she said, her voice cracking. "The pilot is dead. There's no one left to save. Just go." Marcus grabbed the seat frame. "I'm not going anywhere." "You don't understand." "I understand fine." He heaved against the metal. His muscles screamed. His burned hands slipped. He readjusted, planted his feet, and pulled again. "I understand you're about to die if you don't shut up and let me work." The seat shifted. 2 inches. 3. "It's not going to move," she said. "Please, you have a life. Go live it." Marcus looked at her then. Really looked. Through the smoke and the blood and the chaos, he saw a woman who had made peace with dying. A woman who thought her life wasn't worth a stranger's risk. She was wrong. "Lady Mao," Marcus said, "I've been dead for 10 years. You think I'm afraid of a little fire?" He pulled one more time. The seat broke free. The woman gasped as the pressure released from her legs. Marcus grabbed her under the arms and hauled her toward the shattered window. "Can you walk?" I don't know." "Then hold on." He lifted her over his shoulder. She weighed maybe 130 pounds, but the adrenaline made her feel like nothing. He climbed through the wreckage, his boots crunching on broken glass, his eyes scanning for the clearest path. The fuel tank was hissing. He could hear it. That sound, that high-pitched whistle of pressurized liquid meeting open flame, was a sound he knew too well. He had maybe 30 seconds. He ran. The snow was deep. Each step sank him to the knee. The woman on his shoulder groaned with every impact. Behind them, the helicopter groaned louder. 20 seconds. Marcus pushed harder. His lungs were on fire. His legs were cramping. The cold air mixed with the heat from his burned hands created a pain so intense he almost laughed. 10 seconds. He saw a ridge ahead. A natural barrier. Not much, but enough. 5 seconds. He dove. The explosion hit them like a fist from God. Heat and light and sound all merged into one overwhelming force that picked them up and threw them another 10 feet into the snow. Marcus wrapped his body around the woman, shielding her from the debris that rained down like meteors. Then silence. Complete. Absolute. The kind of silence that only exists in the mountains after something terrible has happened. Marcus lay there for a moment, breathing. Just breathing. The snow beneath him was cold, and the heat on his back was fading, and somewhere in between those two sensations, he realized he was still alive. "Hey!" He shook the woman's shoulder. "Hey, you with me?" She coughed, opened her eyes, looked up at him with an expression he couldn't read. "Why?" she whispered. "Why didn't you leave?" Marcus didn't answer. He just stood up, lifted her again, and started walking toward the tree line where his truck was parked. He didn't tell her the truth. He didn't tell her that leaving people to die was something he'd sworn never to do again. He didn't tell her about Sarah. 48 hours earlier, Marcus Ward had been a different man. Not better, not worse, just different. The kind of different that comes from spending a decade trying to forget who you used to be. He woke at 5 a.m. same as always. The cabin was cold. The fire had died overnight, and frost had crept across the inside of the windows. He lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind howl outside. Then he heard it. Small footsteps. A creak of floorboards. "Dad?" Marcus sat up. His daughter Lily stood in the doorway, her blonde hair tangled from sleep, her mother's eyes blinking in the dim light. "Hey, baby girl. What are you doing up?" "I had a dream." She padded across the room and climbed onto his bed. "About Mom." Marcus's chest tightened. Even after 10 years, the mention of Sarah could stop his heart. "Yeah. What kind of dream?" "She was flying." Lily pulled the blanket around her shoulders. "She was in a helicopter way up high and she was waving at me. And she said to tell you something." Marcus waited. He didn't believe in messages from the dead. He didn't believe in much of anything anymore. But he would never tell his daughter that. "What did she say?" "She said you're still a good pilot, Dad, even if you forgot." The words hit Marcus like a punch. He turned away, pretending to adjust the blanket, hiding the tears that suddenly burned his eyes. "That's a nice dream, sweetheart." "Do you think it was real?" "I think—" Marcus paused, swallowed hard. "I think your mom loved you very much. And I think she'd want you to go back to sleep so you're not tired for school." Lily smiled. She kissed his cheek and scampered back to her room. Marcus didn't go back to sleep. He sat on the edge of his bed for a long time, staring at the photograph on his nightstand. Him and Sarah on their wedding day. Her smile was so bright, it almost hurt to look at. "I haven't forgotten," he whispered. "I just can't do it anymore. Not without you." The drive to school was quiet. Lily sat in the passenger seat of Marcus's old pickup truck, her backpack on her lap, her eyes watching the snow-covered trees pass by. "Dad?" "Yeah." "Why don't you fly anymore?" The question came out of nowhere, like questions from 8-year-olds often do. Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Because I have you now. Flying is dangerous. And you need me here." "But you were the best. Mom always said you were the best pilot she ever saw." "Your mom was biased." "What's biased?" "It means she loved me, so she thought everything I did was amazing." Lily considered this. "Is that why you think I'm amazing at everything?" Marcus laughed. It was a real laugh, the kind that loosened something in his chest. "Got me there, baby girl." He pulled up to St. Haven Elementary. The building was small brick, the kind of school that served mountain communities where everyone knew everyone else's business. Lily grabbed her backpack and opened the door. "Dad?" "Yeah." "You'll pick me up, right? You promise?" The question shouldn't have meant so much. It was the same thing she asked every morning. But today, for some reason, it landed differently. "I promise," Marcus said. "Always." She smiled and ran toward the building. Marcus watched until she disappeared inside. He sat there for another minute, engine idling, thinking about Sarah, thinking about helicopters, thinking about the man who had taken everything from him. James Hale. The name rose unbidden like a corpse floating to the surface of a lake. Marcus hadn't spoken that name aloud in years. He'd trained himself not to think it, not to feel the rage that came with it. But some wounds never fully heal. They just scab over, waiting for something to tear them open again. St. Haven. Air traffic control sat on a hill overlooking the valley. Marcus had worked there for 8 years, ever since he'd hung up his flight suit and sworn never to touch the controls of a helicopter again. The job was simple. Watch the screens, track the flights, make sure nobody crashed into the mountains. It was flying without flying close enough to the sky to remember far enough from the cockpit to stay sane. He clocked in at 7:30, same as always, grabbed a coffee from the break room, exchanged nods with his coworkers, settled into his chair, and started scanning the monitors. The northern corridor was busy today. 3 commercial flights, 2 cargo planes, and something else, a private signal climbing into the mountains. "Hey, Marcus." His supervisor, a heavy-set man named Frank, leaned over his shoulder. "You hear about the big show tomorrow?" "What show?" "Hale Aviation. They're doing a test flight. Some new helicopter model. CEO's going up herself." Marcus's hand froze on his coffee cup. The liquid sloshed over the rim, burning his fingers, but he didn't feel it. "Hale." "Yeah, Victoria Hale, James Hale's daughter. You know the guy who started Hale Dynamics died a few years back. She took over the company. Apparently she's some kind of genius, building helicopters that are supposed to be uncrashable." Frank laughed. "Like that's possible." Marcus said nothing. He stared at his screen, watching the blinking dots of aircraft moving across the mountains, but he wasn't really seeing them. Victoria Hale, James Hale's daughter. The daughter of the man who killed Sarah. "You okay?" Frank asked. "You look like you just saw a ghost." "I'm fine." Marcus set down his coffee. "Just tired." But he wasn't fine. He was remembering. 10 years ago, Marcus Ward had been the best rescue pilot in the Pacific Northwest. That wasn't bragging. It was fact. He'd flown missions that other pilots refused: hurricanes, wildfires, blizzards that reduced visibility to 0. He'd pulled survivors from wreckage that everyone else had written off as unrecoverable. He'd earned every medal, every commendation, every word of praise. And then Sarah had died. She'd been on a medical transport flight, a routine run from Seattle to a rural hospital. The helicopter was a Hale Dynamics model, state-of-the-art according to the marketing. Navigation system that could fly through anything, except it couldn't. Somewhere over the northern ridge, the system failed. The helicopter went down. All souls lost. Marcus had flown the search himself. He'd found the wreckage scattered across a mountainside, still smoking bodies frozen in the snow. He'd found Sarah's ring, the one he'd given her on their wedding day, clutched in her hand. And then he'd found something else. Documents, internal memos, evidence that Hale Dynamics had known about a flaw in their navigation system for months before the crash. Engineers had flagged the problem. They'd warned that under certain conditions, extreme cold, high-altitude, heavy precipitation, the system could fail catastrophically. James Hale had signed off on those reports. He'd certified the helicopters as safe. He'd chosen profit over people. And Sarah had paid the price. Marcus had tried to go public. He'd contacted lawyers, journalists, regulatory agencies. He'd spent every penny he had fighting to expose the truth. Hale's legal team had buried him. They'd threatened, countered, delayed. They'd painted him as a grieving widower, unstable, unreliable. The FAA had closed the investigation. The media had moved on. And Marcus, broken, furious bankrupt, had walked away. He'd hung up his flight suit, taken a desk job, focused on raising Lily, and he'd sworn that one day somehow he would make James Hale pay. But James Hale had died 3 years later. Heart attack, quick and painless. There had been no justice, no reckoning, no closure. Just Marcus alone with his grief and his rage, watching the years pass by. Until now. That night Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Victoria Hale. Thinking about the test flight. Thinking about the helicopter that was going to climb into those mountains tomorrow. The same mountains where Sarah had died. Part of him wanted to warn them. Part of him wanted to call Hale Aviation and tell them about the flaw. Tell them to ground the aircraft. Tell them that history was about to repeat itself. But another part, a darker part, wanted to watch them fall. Let them crash. Let them burn. Let Victoria Hale feel what he had felt for the past decade. Let her know what it was like to lose everything. The thought disgusted him. He wasn't that man. He had never been that man. But 10 years of grief could change a person in ways they didn't expect. He got up, walked to the window, stared out at the snow-covered mountains. "Sarah," he whispered. What am I supposed to do? The wind answered with silence. The next morning, Marcus signed up for the overnight shift. Just want to make sure the radar doesn't glitch, he told Frank. That mountain corridor gets tricky in the winter. But the truth was simpler and darker. He needed to watch. He needed to see if Victoria Hale made it back alive. He told himself it was curiosity. He told himself it was professional interest. But deep down, he knew what it really was. A test. If she crashed, would he go after her? Would he fly into the storm like he used to? Or would he stay in his chair, watch the blinking dot disappear and tell himself it was fate? He didn't know the answer. And that scared him more than anything. The X-9 took off at 6 a.m. Marcus watched it on his screen, a small green dot climbing steadily into the gray winter sky. The aircraft was state-of-the-art, according to the flight plan. New rotors, new navigation system, a testament to James Hale's legacy perfected by his daughter. For 20 minutes, everything was normal. The dot moved smoothly across the map. The radio chatter was calm. Victoria Hale's voice came through at one point, confident and professional, calling out altitude markers. Then the dot flickered. Marcus leaned forward. His heart rate spiked. The dot flickered again. Red warnings began flashing across his screen. "Tower to Hale X-9, Marcus said into his headset. "Do you copy static? Hale X-9, this is St. Haven Tower. Please respond." More static. Then faintly a voice. Victoria's voice cutting through the noise. "Navigation failure, can't see Marcus, someone, anyone." The line went dead. Marcus stared at the screen. The dot was gone. No signal. No emergency beacon. Nothing but empty space where a helicopter used to be. His hand moved to the phone. He could call search and rescue. He could report the crash. He could let someone else handle it. But his hand stopped. The memories came flooding back. Sarah's face. The wreckage. The ring clutched in her frozen fingers. And another memory, older, stronger. The promise he'd made when he'd first started flying. The reason he'd become a pilot in the first place. No one gets left behind. Marcus grabbed his jacket and ran for the door. The storm hit as soon as he reached the tree line. Snow came down in sheets so thick he could barely see the hood of his truck. The windshield wipers fought a losing battle. The road disappeared under white. Marcus drove anyway. He knew these mountains. He'd searched them 100 times. He could navigate them blind. His phone buzzed. A text from the babysitter. "Lily's fine. She's doing homework. Everything okay?" Marcus typed back. "Running late. Don't wait up." He didn't tell her where he was going. He didn't tell her why. He followed the coordinates burned into his memory from the radar screen. 15 miles into the wilderness. Then 20. Then 25. And then he saw it. The helicopter was on its side, wedged into a narrow ravine. The rotors were bent. The cockpit was shattered. Smoke poured from the engine, mixing with the falling snow. And flames everywhere. Marcus stopped the truck and ran. The woman was still conscious when he reached her. That was the first surprise. The second was her voice, strong despite the blood, and smoke, commanding despite the chaos. "Don't come any closer," she shouted. "The fuel tank is compromised." Marcus ignored her. He pushed through the wreckage, following the sound of her voice. "Are you deaf?" She was pinned under a collapsed seat. Her legs trapped, her face twisted with pain. "I said stay back." "I heard you." Marcus knelt beside her, assessing the damage. The seat frame was bent, but not fused. He could move it with enough force. "Then why are you still here?" "Because I'm not in the habit of letting people die." "The pilot is already dead. There's nothing you can do." "I'm not here for the pilot." Victoria stared at him. In the flickering light of the flames, her eyes were sharp, intelligent, searching. "Who are you?" "Nobody important." Marcus braced his hands against the seat frame. "Now shut up and let me save your life." He pulled. The metal groaned. Victoria screamed as the pressure shifted against her legs. "Stop! You're making it worse!" I'm making it loose. He pulled again. The seat moved. Once more. Brace yourself. I can't. Yes, you can. You're Victoria Hale. Your father built machines that could survive hurricanes. You can survive one more pull. He didn't mean it as a compliment. He meant it as a reminder of who she was, of what her family had built, of the legacy that had killed his wife. But she didn't know that. She just nodded, set her jaw, and braced. Marcus pulled. The seat broke free. Victoria gasped, then screamed as feeling returned to her crushed legs. Can you move them? I don't. Yes, I think so. Then we're leaving. Now. He lifted her over his shoulder before she could argue. The flames were spreading. The hissing from the fuel tank was getting louder. They had seconds. Marcus ran. The explosion threw them into the snow. Marcus felt the heat wash over them, felt the debris rain down, felt Victoria's hands clutching his jacket as he shielded her with his body. And then it was over. Silence. Cold. The crackle of distant flames. Marcus lifted his head. The helicopter was gone. Just twisted metal and smoke where it used to be. You okay? He asked. Victoria nodded. Her face was pale. Blood still ran from the gash on her temple. But she was alive. Who are you? She asked again. Marcus stood, lifted her, started walking toward the tree line. Like I said, nobody important. He carried her through the storm, his burned hands screaming with every step, his lungs fighting for air in the thin mountain atmosphere. The cabin was 3 miles away. It might as well have been 300. But he kept walking, one foot in front of the other, the same way he'd been walking for 10 years, running from the past, running toward what he didn't know anymore. But tonight, he'd saved a life, the daughter of his enemy, the heir to the legacy that had destroyed him. And he had no idea what he was going to do about it. The cabin door nearly came off its hinges when Marcus kicked it open. He carried Victoria inside and laid her on the couch near the fireplace. Her body was shaking. Her lips had turned blue. Hypothermia was setting in fast. Marcus grabbed every blanket he could find and piled them on top of her. He started a fire, his burned hands screaming as he struck the matches. The first 3 broke. The 4th caught. He fed the flames until they roared. Stay with me, he said. You hear me? Stay with me. Victoria's eyes fluttered. Cold. So cold. I know. Fire's going. You're going to be okay. He cleaned the blood from her forehead with a wet cloth. The gash was deep, but not fatal. He bandaged it with supplies from his first aid kit, working quickly, efficiently, the way he'd been trained. Your hands, Victoria whispered. Marcus looked down. His palms were raw, the skin blistered and peeling. He'd forgotten about them. They're fine. They're not fine. They're burned. Lady, I've had worse. My name is Victoria. I know. She looked at him, then her eyes focusing despite the pain. How do you know? Marcus didn't answer. He wrapped his hands in gauze and sat in the chair across from her. The fire crackled between them. Outside, the storm howled like something alive. You should sleep, he said. I can't sleep. My pilot is dead. I'm sorry. His name was David. He had 2 kids. He was supposed to retire next month. Victoria's voice cracked. I should have let him stay on the ground. I should have gone alone. Then you'd both be dead. Maybe that would have been better. Marcus leaned forward. Don't say that. Don't ever say that. You don't know me. You don't know what I've done. I know you're alive. That's enough for now. Victoria closed her eyes. Tears leaked from the corners, running down her temples into her hair. Marcus watched her for a long moment, then stood and walked to the window. The storm was getting worse. They weren't going anywhere tonight. He pulled out his phone and texted the babysitter. Stuck at work. Keep Lily overnight. I'll pay extra. The response came immediately. No problem. She's already asleep. Stay safe. Marcus stared at the message. Stay safe. If only she knew. He was standing in his cabin with the daughter of James Hale, the woman whose family had destroyed his life, the heir to a legacy built on lies and covered up deaths. And he had saved her. What kind of man did that make him? Around midnight, a sound made Marcus turn from the window. Lily stood in the doorway of the back room, rubbing her eyes. She was supposed to be at the babysitter's house. She wasn't supposed to be here. Dad. Marcus's heart stopped. Lily, what are you doing here? Mrs. Patterson's car wouldn't start. She called you, but you didn't answer, so she walked me home. Lily yawned. Who's that lady? Marcus looked at Victoria, unconscious on the couch, then back at his daughter. His mind raced through explanations, excuses, anything that would make sense to an 8-year-old. She's someone who got lost in the storm. I found her and brought her here. Is she hurt? A little, but she's going to be okay. Lily padded across the room in her pajamas. She stood next to the couch and looked down at Victoria with the unfiltered curiosity of a child. She looks like a princess, Lily said. A sad princess. Maybe she is. Can I help? You want to help? Lily nodded solemnly. Mom always said we should help people when they're hurt. The mention of Sarah hit Marcus like a blow to the chest. He knelt down and pulled Lily into a hug. Yeah, baby girl, your mom did say that. Lily fetched another blanket from her room and tucked it around Victoria's shoulders with careful, deliberate movements. Then she climbed into Marcus's lap and fell asleep within minutes. He held her, watching the firelight dance across the walls, watching the woman on his couch breathe in and out, and wondered what the hell he was supposed to do now. Victoria woke at dawn. The first thing she saw was the ceiling rough wooden beams, smoke-stained and old. The second thing she saw was Marcus sitting in a chair across from her, a mug of coffee in his bandaged hands. She tried to sit up. Pain shot through her ribs. She gasped and fell back. Easy, Marcus said. You've got bruised ribs, maybe cracked. Won't know for sure until you see a doctor. Where am I? My cabin, about 20 miles from the crash site. How long was I out? 8 hours, give or take. Victoria looked around the room. It was modest, worn furniture, faded photographs on the walls, a stone fireplace that looked like it had been burning all night. Not the kind of place she was used to. You live here, for the past 8 years, alone, with my daughter. Victoria's eyes moved to the hallway where she could hear faint sounds of movement. You have a daughter. Her name's Lily. She's 8. 8 years old. Victoria's voice softened. That's young to lose a mother. Marcus's hand tightened on his mug. Who said anything about losing a mother? The photographs. Victoria nodded toward the wall. There's a woman in all of them. But she's not here, and you're not wearing a ring. Marcus said nothing. He stared at her with an expression she couldn't read, something between respect and resentment. I'm sorry, Victoria said. I shouldn't have assumed. You assumed right. My wife died 10 years ago. What happened? Marcus stood up abruptly. He walked to the window and stared out at the snow. Helicopter crash, Northern Ridge. Navigation failure. Victoria felt something cold settle in her stomach. I'm sorry. Are you... What kind of question is that? Marcus turned around. His eyes were hard now, the warmth from earlier completely gone. The kind I'm asking. Of course I'm sorry. Why wouldn't I be? Because the helicopter that killed her was built by your father. The words hung in the air like smoke. Victoria's face went pale. What? Hale Dynamics, medical transport model. Your father signed off on the safety certification, even though he knew the navigation system was flawed. Marcus's voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. My wife was on that helicopter, Sarah. That was her name. She was a nurse. She was flying to help people, and she died because your father cared more about profits than safety. Victoria shook her head. No, that's not possible. I have the documents, internal memos, engineering reports. Your father knew about the defect. He buried it. My father was a good man. Your father was a murderer. Victoria pushed herself up despite the pain. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I spent 2 years trying to expose him. His lawyers destroyed me. The FAA closed the case. And your father went on living his life like nothing happened. Marcus's jaw tightened. He died of a heart attack 3 years later. Quick and painless. More than my wife got. Victoria was shaking now. Why are you telling me this? Why did you save me if you hate my family so much? Because I'm not like your father. My father wasn't. Your father let people die to protect his company. I couldn't do that, even to you. Marcus walked toward her. But I need you to understand something. The helicopter you crashed yesterday, the X-9, it has the same flaw, the same navigation system, the same defect that killed Sarah. Victoria's face went from pale to white. That's impossible. We redesigned everything. I personally reviewed the specs. Then you missed something, or someone hid it from you. Marcus pulled a charred circuit board from his jacket pocket, the one he'd recovered from the wreckage. I found this in the crash site. Same model, same flaw, same signature at the bottom of the safety report. Whose signature? Your father's. He approved the design before he died, and whoever took over just kept building them. Victoria took the circuit board with trembling hands. She turned it over, examining the markings, the serial numbers, the Hale Aviation logo stamped into the corner. This doesn't prove anything. It proves your helicopters are killing people, just like they killed my wife, just like they almost killed you. The crash was an accident, weather conditions. The weather didn't cause the navigation failure, the faulty system did. Marcus sat down across from her. I've seen the data from your black box. I extracted it last night while you were unconscious. You had no right to do that. I had every right. My wife is dead, and yesterday you almost joined her. He leaned forward. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Victoria stared at him. Her mind was racing, processing everything he'd told her, trying to reconcile it with the image of her father she'd carried for 32 years. I need to see the data, she said finally. All of it. I'll show you. But first I need to know something. What? Are you going to do what's right? Or are you going to do what your father did? Victoria met his eyes. I'm not my father. Prove it. They spent the next 3 hours going through the files. Marcus had everything: flight logs, engineering reports, internal communications, safety certifications. He'd gathered it all during the 2 years he'd spent trying to expose James Hale, and he'd kept it ever since, waiting for the day it might matter. Victoria sat at his kitchen table, her face growing tighter with every document she read. Lily had gone to school. Marcus had called the babysitter to pick her up, and the cabin was quiet, except for the rustle of papers and the occasional pop from the fireplace. This memo, Victoria said, holding up a yellow document. It's from Nathan Chen, our chief engineer. I know who he is. He's the one who flagged the defect. He warned my father 3 months before the crash that killed your wife. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. And my father responded by moving him to a different department. Buried him, just like he buried everything else. Victoria set down the document. Her hands were shaking. I didn't know. I swear to you I didn't know. Would it have changed anything if you did? Of course it would have. I would have. She stopped, took a breath. I would have done something. What gone to the FAA, issued a recall, destroyed your own company. Yes, all of that. Whatever it took. Marcus studied her face. He'd spent years imagining this moment, confronting someone from the Hale family, forcing them to see the truth, making them feel the weight of what they'd done. He'd expected defensiveness, denial, lawyers and threats. He hadn't expected tears. I loved my father, Victoria said. He taught me everything I know about engineering, about business, about leadership. He told me that the most important thing was building machines that could save lives. She laughed bitterly. And the whole time he was building machines that were killing people. People have a way of hiding their worst selves from the people they love. That doesn't make it okay. No, it doesn't. Victoria wiped her eyes. What do you want me to do? I told you, reopen the investigation. Pull every helicopter with that navigation system, and tell the truth. If I do that, Hale Aviation dies. Thousands of people lose their jobs. The stock crashes. Investors sue. We're talking about billions of dollars. I know. You want me to destroy everything my father built. I want you to make sure nobody else dies. The rest is your choice. Victoria stood up. She walked to the window and stared out at the mountains. The same mountains where she'd almost died, where Sarah had died, where so many others had fallen victim to her father's lies. There's something else you should know, Marcus said. She turned around. Last night I got a phone call, blocked number. A voice told me to destroy the black box data, to forget everything I'd found. He paused. They threatened my daughter. Victoria's face changed. Someone threatened Lily. They said if I opened that box she wouldn't be safe. Who would do that? Someone who wants to keep the truth buried. Someone inside your company maybe, or connected to it. Victoria thought for a moment. Richard Burke. Who? My father's business partner. He took over operations after my father died. He's been pushing me to expand production, to cut corners on testing, to get the X9 to market faster. She shook her head. I thought he was just ambitious. I didn't think he was corrupt, dangerous. Marcus stood. If Burke is behind this, then you're in danger too. You saw what happened to your helicopter. That might not have been an accident. You think someone sabotaged the X9. I think someone wanted you dead. And when that failed, they threatened my daughter to make sure I didn't talk. Victoria's expression hardened. Something shifted in her eyes, from grief to anger, from confusion to resolve. I need to get back to Seattle, she said. I need to confront Burke. I need to see the engineering files. You need to be careful. Burke already tried to kill you once. If he knows you survived and you're asking questions, he'll try again. Then come with me. Marcus blinked. What? Come to Seattle. Help me expose this. You know more about the defect than anyone. You have the documentation, and frankly, I need someone I can trust. She paused. Someone who isn't trying to protect my father's legacy. I have a daughter. I can't just leave her. Bring her. I'll put you both up somewhere safe, somewhere Burke can't find you. Marcus shook his head. You don't understand. I'm not part of your world. I'm a radar technician. I watch screens for a living. I haven't flown in 10 years. And yet you flew into a blizzard to save a stranger. Victoria walked toward him. You risked your life for someone you'd never met, someone you had every reason to hate. That tells me more about who you are than any job title. It tells you I'm an idiot. It tells me you're exactly the kind of man I need right now. Marcus looked at her. The firelight caught her face, highlighting the bruises and the bandage on her forehead, the exhaustion in her eyes and the determination beneath it. She wasn't what he'd expected. The daughter of James Hale, he'd imagined someone cold, entitled, protected from consequences by wealth and power. Someone who would defend her father's legacy at any cost. But this woman had cried when she learned the truth. She'd immediately asked what she could do to fix it. She'd offered to destroy everything her father built, if that's what it took. Maybe she wasn't her father after all. I'll think about it, Marcus said. We don't have time for you to think about it. Burke knows I survived. He knows the black box data exists. If we don't move fast, he'll destroy the evidence and cover his tracks. Then go. Do what you have to do. I'll send you everything I have. I need you there in person. You're the only witness who can connect the original crash to the current defect. Your testimony could bring down Burke and everyone who protected him. My testimony destroyed me once already. The lawyers ate me alive. Because you were alone. This time you won't be. Victoria grabbed his arm. I know what I'm asking. I know you have every reason to refuse, but please, help me make this right." Marcus pulled away. He walked to the fireplace and stared into the flames. "You know what's funny?" he said quietly. "I spent 10 years dreaming about this moment, about meeting someone from your family, about forcing them to see what your father did. I imagined yelling, screaming, making them feel the pain I felt every day. And now I just feel tired." He turned around. "I'm tired of being angry. I'm tired of carrying this. I'm tired of waking up every morning and remembering that my wife is dead and nobody paid for it. Then let me pay for it. Let me do what my father should have done. You didn't kill Sarah. You don't owe me anything." "Maybe not. But I owe it to everyone else who might die if I stay silent." Victoria's voice broke. "David died yesterday. My pilot. The man who was supposed to retire next month. He had 2 kids. And if I don't stop this, more pilots will die. More families will be destroyed. And I'll be just as guilty as my father." Marcus closed his eyes. He saw Sarah's face. He heard Lily's voice asking if he'd pick her up. He thought about the threat, about the danger, about everything he'd lose if he got involved. And then he thought about the promise he'd made to himself 10 years ago. No one gets left behind. "Fine," he said. "I'll come to Seattle. But I need to make some calls first. And I need to make sure Lily is safe." Victoria nodded. "Whatever you need. I'll make it happen. And one more thing. Name it." Marcus looked at her. "When this is over, when Burke is exposed and the truth comes out, I want my wife's name cleared. I want it on the record that she died because of your father's negligence. I want her to be remembered as a victim, not a statistic." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I promise." "Then we have a deal." They shook hands. His bandaged palm against her smooth fingers, and for the first time in 10 years, Marcus felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. It was small, fragile, easily crushed. But it was there. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time the truth would come out. Maybe this time Sarah would finally get justice. Or maybe he was walking into another trap. Either way, he was done running. The drive to Seattle would take 4 hours. The confrontation with Burke might take longer. And whatever came after the hearings, the lawsuits, the investigations could take years. But Marcus had waited a decade for this moment. He could wait a little longer. The Seattle skyline appeared through the windshield just after noon. Marcus had driven the entire way, his burned hands gripping the wheel, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Victoria sat in the passenger seat, making phone calls, sending emails, coordinating with lawyers and investigators. Lily sat in the back, quiet for most of the trip, watching the landscape change from snow-covered mountains to gray urban sprawl. "Dad." Lily's voice broke the silence. "Yeah, baby girl. Are we going to be okay?" Marcus looked at her in the rearview mirror. Her mother's eyes stared back at him full of trust and worry. "We're going to be fine," he said. "I promise." Victoria ended her call and turned around in her seat. "Lily, when we get to the city, you're going to stay with some very nice people who work for me. They're going to keep you safe while your dad and I take care of some grown-up stuff." "What kind of grown-up stuff?" "The boring kind," Victoria said with a small smile. "Lots of meetings and paperwork." Lily nodded, but she didn't look convinced. She was 8 years old, not stupid. She knew something was wrong. Marcus pulled into the parking garage of Hale Aviation headquarters at 12:30. The building loomed above them, all glass and steel, a monument to James Hale's ambition. Victoria led them through a private entrance and up a service elevator to avoid the main lobby. "Burke doesn't know you're coming," Marcus asked. "I told him I was still recovering at a hospital in Portland. Bought us some time." "How much time?" "Enough to get the evidence we need." They reached the executive floor. Victoria handed Lily off to her personal assistant, a young woman named Claire, who looked like she could handle anything. "Take her to the safe room," Victoria instructed. "Don't let anyone in. Don't answer any calls except from me directly." Claire nodded and led Lily away. The little girl looked back at her father one last time. "I'll come get you soon," Marcus called out. "I promise." Then she was gone, and Marcus was alone with Victoria in a world he didn't understand. The CEO's office was exactly what Marcus had imagined. Massive desk, floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive art on the walls. But Victoria didn't sit behind the desk. She went straight to a panel in the wall and pressed her palm against a hidden scanner. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a private server room. "My father was paranoid," Victoria explained. "He kept copies of everything. Financial records, engineering files, communications. He said it was insurance." "Insurance against what?" "Against people like Richard Burke." She led Marcus inside. The room was cold, filled with humming machines and blinking lights. Victoria sat down at a terminal and started typing. "If Burke was involved in covering up the defect, the evidence will be here. My father documented everything. Even his own crimes. Especially those. He always said the best way to control people was to have dirt on them." Victoria paused her typing. "I used to think he was brilliant. Now I realize he was just afraid. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of being exposed. Fear makes people do terrible things. It doesn't excuse them." "No, it doesn't." Victoria pulled up a series of files. Her face went pale as she read. "Oh, God," she whispered. "What is it?" "Burke. He knew about the defect from the beginning. He was the one who convinced my father to suppress the engineering reports." She scrolled through the documents, her hands trembling. "And look at this. Payments. Offshore accounts. Burke was siphoning money from the company for years. My father caught him, threatened to expose him. And then what?" Victoria looked up at Marcus. Her eyes were wet with tears. "My father's heart attack. 3 years ago. Burke was with him when it happened. They were alone in this very office." The implication hung in the air. "You think Burke killed him?" "I think my father was about to turn him in, and Burke made sure that never happened." Marcus felt his chest tighten. He'd spent 10 years hating James Hale, blaming him for Sarah's death. But now, standing in this room, he realized the truth was more complicated than he'd ever imagined. James Hale had been a flawed man, a coward, a liar. But he hadn't been alone, and maybe, just maybe, he'd been trying to make things right before he died. "We need to get this to the authorities," Marcus said. "Not yet." Victoria pulled a flash drive from the terminal and pocketed it. "Burke has people everywhere. Lawyers, politicians, regulators. If we go to the FBI without ironclad proof, he'll bury us just like he buried my father." "Then what do you suggest?" "We confront him. Get him to admit what he did. I'll record everything." "That's insane. He already tried to kill you once." "Which is exactly why he won't expect me to walk into his office. He thinks I'm weak, grieving, naive." Victoria's jaw tightened. He's about to find out how wrong he is. Richard Burke's office was 3 floors below. Victoria walked through the executive hallway like she owned the place, which technically she did. Marcus followed a step behind his hands in his pockets, trying to look like he belonged. Burke's assistant looked up as they approached. "Miss Hale, we weren't expecting you. Mr. Burke said you were—" "Plans changed. Is he in?" "He's on a call, but I can—" Victoria pushed past her and opened the door. Richard Burke sat behind his desk, phone pressed to his ear. He was in his 60s, silver-haired, with the kind of face that had learned to smile without meaning it. When he saw Victoria, the smile froze. "I'll call you back," he said, and hung up. "Victoria, what a surprise." Burke stood buttoning his jacket. "I thought you were recovering in Portland." "I got better." Burke's eyes moved to Marcus. "And who's this?" "This is Marcus Ward. He's the man who saved my life." Something flickered in Burke's expression. Recognition. Fear. It was gone in an instant, replaced by practiced warmth. "Mr. Ward, we owe you a tremendous debt." Burke extended his hand. "If there's anything I can do to repay you." Marcus didn't take the hand. "You can start by explaining why you threatened my daughter." The temperature in the room dropped. Burke lowered his hand slowly. "I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about." "Really?" "Because I got a very interesting phone call 2 nights ago. Someone told me to destroy the black box data from Victoria's crash. They said if I didn't, my 8-year-old daughter wouldn't be safe." Marcus stepped forward. "You want to tell me who made that call?" "I have no idea. But if someone threatened your child, that's a matter for the police." "The police work for you. Half of them anyway." Burke's jaw tightened. "That's a serious accusation. I've got a lot more where that came from." Victoria pulled out her phone and placed it on the desk. "I found the files, Richard. All of them. The engineering reports, the payments, the communications between you and my father." Burke's face went very still. "Those files are proprietary company information. If you access them without authorization..." "I'm the CEO. Everything in this building is authorized by me." "You're a figurehead. Your father made sure of that in his will." "My father is dead, and I know how he died." The silence that followed was absolute. Burke looked at Victoria, then at Marcus, then back at Victoria. His mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating beneath. "You should be careful," he said quietly. "Making accusations without proof can be dangerous." "I have proof. I have everything." "Do you?" Burke smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Files can be deleted. Witnesses can disappear. Accidents happen all the time." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact of life. You're young, Victoria. You don't understand how the world really works." "I understand that you killed my father." Burke laughed. It was a hollow sound. "James killed himself. The stress of running this company, the pressure of maintaining appearances. His heart gave out. It was tragic, but it was natural. The autopsy said he had elevated levels of digoxin in his system, a heart medication he wasn't prescribed." Burke's smile faltered. "Where did you get that information?" "It was in my father's files, the files he kept on everyone, including you." Victoria leaned forward. "He was going to expose you, wasn't he? He was finally going to do the right thing, and you stopped him." "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Then explain the offshore accounts. Explain the payments to FAA officials. Explain the falsified safety reports." Burke's face flushed with anger. "Your father was just as guilty as I was. More guilty. He designed those helicopters. He signed off on the defects. He made the decision to protect the company over people's lives. But he changed his mind. At the end, he wanted to come clean. And you think that makes him a hero?" Burke slammed his hand on the desk. "Your father was a coward. He spent 30 years building an empire on lies, and when he finally grew a conscience, he wanted to burn it all down. I saved this company. I saved thousands of jobs. I saved everything he built. You killed people. I made difficult decisions. That's what leadership is." Victoria reached for her phone. "I have everything recorded. This conversation, your confession. It's over, Richard." Burke moved faster than Marcus expected. He grabbed Victoria's wrist and twisted, sending the phone clattering to the floor. Marcus lunged forward, but Burke was already pulling something from his desk drawer. "A gun." "Don't move," Burke said, pressing the barrel against Victoria's temple. "Either of you." Marcus froze. His heart was pounding. "Let her go." "I don't think so. Victoria and I are going to take a little trip. And you're going to stay here and think about what happens to people who stick their noses where they don't belong. The building has security cameras, witnesses. You can't just... The cameras on this floor have been offline for maintenance since this morning. My security team will swear they never saw you enter." Burke smiled. "It's amazing what people will do for the right price." Victoria struggled against his grip. "You won't get away with this." "I've been getting away with it for 20 years. What's one more day?" Burke started backing toward a side door, dragging Victoria with him. Marcus calculated the distance, the angle, the odds of reaching them before Burke pulled the trigger. They weren't good. "Your daughter," Burke said, looking at Marcus. "Lily isn't it cute, kid? Blonde hair, likes helicopters. She's staying in the safe room on the 4th floor, right?" Marcus's blood turned to ice. "If you touch her—" "I won't have to, as long as you do exactly what I say." Burke opened the side door with his free hand. "Wait here for 1 hour. Don't call anyone. Don't move. After that you can collect your daughter and go home. Forget any of this ever happened." And Victoria. Victoria is going to have a tragic accident. Another helicopter crash. Such a shame. The stress of her recent trauma must have affected her judgment. She's your CEO, your partner's daughter. You really think you can just make her disappear? I've done it before. Burke's eyes went cold. Sarah Ward, medical transport pilot. Your wife, I believe? That crash wasn't random, Mr. Ward. We knew she was carrying documents, evidence that could have exposed everything. We made sure she never delivered them. The words hit Marcus like a bullet. Sarah. They had killed Sarah. Not through negligence, not through accident. Murder. You son of a... Marcus charged. Burke fired. The bullet caught Marcus in the shoulder, spinning him around. He hit the floor, hard, blood already soaking through his shirt. Dad always said you were too emotional, Burke said to Victoria as he dragged her through the door. That's why you could never run this company. Then they were gone. Marcus lay on the floor gasping. The pain was white-hot, blinding. But beneath the pain was something else. Something that had been dormant for 10 years and was now roaring back to life. Rage. He pushed himself up with his good arm. Blood dripped onto the expensive carpet. His vision swam. Sarah. They killed Sarah. He'd spent a decade blaming James Hale, hating a dead man for what he thought was corporate negligence. But it wasn't negligence. It was assassination. Sarah had found evidence, tried to deliver it, and Burke had ordered her helicopter sabotaged. His wife hadn't died in an accident. She'd been murdered. Marcus grabbed the edge of Burke's desk and pulled himself to his feet. The room tilted. He steadied himself, breathing through the pain. Lily. Burke knew where Lily was. He had to move. Now. Marcus staggered through the office door. The hallway was empty. Burke's assistant was gone, probably paid to disappear. He found the service stairs and started down one agonizing step at a time. His shoulders screamed with every movement. Blood left a trail behind him. 4th floor. Safe room. He burst through the stairwell door and ran down the corridor. The safe room was at the end. The door was closed, but not locked. He threw it open. Empty. Claire was on the floor, unconscious but breathing. Lily was gone. No, Marcus whispered. No, no, no. He dropped to his knees beside Claire and shook her. Wake up. Where is she? Where's my daughter? Claire's eyes fluttered open. They took her. 2 men. I tried to stop them. Where did they go? The roof. They said something about a helicopter. The roof. Marcus ran. The stairs to the roof access were endless. Each step sent agony through his shoulder. Blood soaked his entire left side now. He was getting dizzy, losing too much. But he couldn't stop. Not now. Not when Lily needed him. He burst through the rooftop door and into the cold wind. A helicopter was warming up on the landing pad. The rotors were spinning. Burke stood near the door, Lily in his arms. Victoria was already inside, her hands bound. Dad! Lily screamed. Burke turned. His face registered surprise, then annoyance. You should be dead. I've been dead for 10 years. Marcus walked toward them, his wounded arm hanging limp, his good hand balled into a fist. It didn't take. One more step, and I throw your daughter off this building. Marcus stopped. Lily was crying. Her small body trembled in Burke's grip. She looked at her father with eyes full of terror. It's okay, baby girl. Marcus said, his voice steady despite everything. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. How touching. Burke shifted Lily higher. But we both know how this ends. You're bleeding out, you have no weapon, and in about 30 seconds this helicopter is going to take off with everyone you care about inside. Then it's going to have a very unfortunate accident over the mountains. Tragic. Unavoidable. Like Sarah's accident. Exactly like Sarah's accident. Burke smiled. You know she fought too. Right up until the end. I heard the recording from the cockpit. She kept trying to reach someone on the radio. Kept saying she had proof. Kept saying someone needed to know. His smile widened. No one ever heard her. Something broke inside Marcus. Not his will, not his spirit. Something else. Something that had been holding him back for 10 years. Fear. He'd been afraid. Afraid of dying. Afraid of leaving Lily alone. Afraid of becoming the man he used to be, the one who flew into storms and laughed at death. But now, looking at his daughter in the arms of the man who murdered his wife Marcus, realized something. He wasn't afraid anymore. You made a mistake, Marcus said quietly. What's that? You left the evidence in James Hale's files. Victoria already copied it. Every document, every payment, every confession. It's already on its way to the FBI, the FAA, and every major news outlet in the country. Burke's smile flickered. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your phone. Burke hesitated. Then, keeping his grip on Lily, he pulled out his phone with his free hand. His face went white. Victoria, set up an automatic upload before we came to your office. Marcus continued. Time to send if she didn't enter a cancellation code every 30 minutes. That timer ran out 5 minutes ago. He took another step forward. It's over, Richard. Everything you've built, everything you've hidden, the whole world is going to know. Then I have nothing to lose. Burke raised Lily higher. If I'm going down, I'm taking everyone with me. No, you're not. Marcus moved. Later, he wouldn't remember exactly what happened. The pain, the blood loss, the adrenaline, it all blurred together. He remembered running, remembered the wind, remembered Lily screaming, remembered his hands closing around Burke's throat. They went down hard, all three of them. Lily broke free and scrambled away. Marcus and Burke rolled across the rooftop fighting for position. Burke was older, but he was desperate. He clawed at Marcus's wounded shoulder. Marcus howled in pain, but didn't let go. You killed my wife, Marcus growled. You threatened my daughter. I did what I had to do. So did I. Marcus slammed Burke's head against the concrete. Once, twice, Burke went limp. For a long moment, Marcus knelt there, his hand still on Burke's throat, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He could finish it, right now, end the man who had taken everything from him. Sarah's face flashed in his mind, her smile, her laugh, the way she'd held Lily on the day she was born. Then Lily's voice, small and terrified. Dad! Marcus looked up. His daughter stood a few feet away, watching him with wide eyes. He let go. Burke slumped to the ground, unconscious, but alive. Marcus crawled toward Lily and pulled her into his arms. She buried her face in his chest, sobbing. It's okay, he whispered, stroking her hair with his blood-stained hand. It's over. We're safe. I was so scared. I know, baby girl. I was scared too. You came for me. I'll always come for you. Always. Behind them, sirens began to wail. Victoria had freed herself from the helicopter and was on the phone calling for help. Marcus held his daughter as the sun broke through the clouds, and for the first time in 10 years, he allowed himself to breathe. The paramedics found Marcus on the rooftop, still holding Lily, his blood pooling on the concrete beneath him. Sir, you need to let go. We have to get you to a hospital. Marcus shook his head. Not leaving her. Dad? Lily's voice was muffled against his chest. I'm okay. You have to let the doctors help you. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're bleeding everywhere. Victoria appeared beside them. Her wrists were red from the bindings, her face streaked with tears. Marcus, listen to her. Listen to your daughter. Burke, he's in custody. Police have him. It's over. Marcus looked down at Lily. Her mother's eyes stared back at him, full of worry and love and something else. Strength. The kind of strength Sarah used to have. Okay, he said finally. Okay. The paramedics lifted him onto a stretcher. Lily grabbed his hand and didn't let go, walking beside him all the way to the elevator. Victoria followed, barking orders into her phone, coordinating with lawyers and federal agents and God knows who else. Marcus watched the ceiling lights pass overhead. His vision was getting fuzzy. The pain in his shoulder had become a distant throb, which probably wasn't good. Stay with me, Dad, Lily said. You promised you'd always pick me up from school, remember? Marcus smiled. It hurt. I remember. So you can't die. Because if you die, who's going to pick me up? That's pretty good logic. I'm smart. Mom always said I was smart. You are. Marcus squeezed her hand. Just like her. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was Lily's face, fierce and determined, refusing to let go. Marcus woke up 3 days later. The hospital room was white and quiet. Machines beeped softly beside his bed. His shoulder was wrapped in bandages, his arm in a sling. An IV dripped something cool into his veins. Dad? Lily launched herself from the chair beside his bed and threw her arms around his neck. Marcus winced at the impact, but held her tight. Easy, baby girl. Still a little broken. I don't care. I'm so glad you're awake. Victoria stood in the doorway watching them. She looked different than she had on the rooftop. The bruises on her face were fading. Her hair was pulled back. She wore simple clothes instead of the designer outfit from before. How long? Marcus asked. 3 days. You lost a lot of blood. The doctors weren't sure you'd make it. Takes more than a bullet to stop me. Apparently. Victoria walked to the foot of his bed. The FBI has Burke in custody. He's been charged with murder, fraud, conspiracy, and about 15 other things. His lawyers are trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the evidence is overwhelming. The files? Everywhere. Every major news network. The FAA has grounded every helicopter with the faulty navigation system. There's a congressional hearing scheduled for next month. Marcus closed his eyes. Good. There's more. Victoria hesitated. They reopened the investigation into your wife's death. Based on the evidence from my father's files, they've reclassified it from accidental to homicide. Burke is being charged with Sarah's murder. The words hit Marcus like a wave. He felt Lily's arms tighten around him, felt the tears start to burn behind his eyes. 10 years, he whispered. I waited 10 years. I know. I'm sorry it took so long. It wasn't your fault. My family, my company, my responsibility. Marcus opened his eyes and looked at her. You're not your father, Victoria, and you're sure as hell not Burke. You could have buried those files. You could have protected the company. Instead, you burned it all down. It was the right thing to do. Most people don't do the right thing, especially when it costs them everything. Victoria sat down in the chair across from his bed. I learned something from you, Marcus. On that mountain, when you pulled me out of the fire. You didn't know who I was. You didn't know my family had destroyed your life. You just saw someone who needed help, and you risked everything to save them. She paused. That's the kind of person I want to be. That's the kind of company I want to build. The company's going to survive. Some of it, we're restructuring, selling off the divisions that were involved in the cover-up, starting over with a clean slate. She smiled sadly. It won't be an empire anymore. But maybe that's okay. Maybe empires aren't what the world needs. What does the world need? People who tell the truth. People who do the right thing even when it's hard. Victoria looked at Lily, then back at Marcus. People like you. Marcus didn't know what to say to that. He'd never thought of himself as a hero, just a man trying to survive, trying to raise his daughter, trying to make it through each day without drowning in grief. But maybe that was enough. Maybe just surviving, just showing up, just refusing to give up, that was its own kind of heroism. I want to ask you something, Victoria said. Go ahead. When this is all over, when the hearings are done, and Burke is in prison and the company is rebuilt, I want you to work for me. Marcus blinked. Work for you. As head of safety operations, I need someone who understands the engineering, who knows what went wrong, who won't let it happen again. Someone who won't be afraid to tell me the truth even when I don't want to hear it. I'm a radar technician. You're a pilot. One of the best in the Pacific Northwest according to everyone I've talked to. I was a pilot 10 years ago. You flew into a blizzard 3 days ago. You landed a helicopter on a rooftop in the middle of a firefight. Marcus shook his head. That was different. That was you being who you really are. Victoria leaned forward. I'm not asking you to forget what happened. I'm not asking you to forgive my family. I'm asking you to help me make sure it never happens again. To anyone. Marcus looked at Lily. She was watching him with that serious expression she got when she was thinking hard about something. What do you think, baby girl? I think you should do it, Lily said without hesitation. Yeah, why? Because you always say Mom wanted you to help people, and this is helping people. She paused. Plus, you're really bored at your other job. You told Mrs. Patterson you felt like your brain was rotting. Victoria laughed. Marcus felt his face flush. I didn't say rotting. You said decaying. Same thing. Thanks for that, Lily. You're welcome. Marcus sighed and looked at Victoria. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. Marcus, yeah. Thank you for everything. For saving my life. For telling me the truth about my father. For not giving up when everyone else would have walked away. You're welcome. She left. Marcus and Lily sat in silence for a moment. Dad? Yeah. Do you like her? Marcus felt his face flush again. What, I barely know her. You saved her life. Twice. And you drove all the way to Seattle with her. And you got shot protecting her. I was protecting you. I know. But you also protected her. Lily tilted her head. It's okay if you like her, Dad. Mom's been gone a long time. The words hit Marcus harder than the bullet had. He pulled Lily closer, breathing in the smell of her hair, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. Your mom was everything to me, he said quietly. I don't know if I can ever feel that way about someone else. You don't have to feel the same way, just different. Lily pulled back and looked at him. Mom used to say that love isn't a pie. You don't run out of it. You can love as many people as your heart has room for. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just don't pay attention. Marcus laughed. It hurt his shoulder, but he didn't care. He pulled Lily close again and held her, feeling the weight of the past 10 years slowly beginning to lift. The congressional hearing happened 6 weeks later. Marcus sat in the gallery, his arm still in a sling, watching Victoria take the stand. She was composed, professional, but he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands gripped the edge of the witness table. Miss Hale, please describe for the committee what you discovered in your father's private files. Victoria took a breath. I discovered evidence of a systematic cover-up spanning more than a decade. Engineering defects were identified in our navigation systems as early as 2012. Instead of issuing recalls, my father and his business partner Richard Burke chose to suppress the reports and falsify safety certifications. And how many aircraft were affected? Over 200 helicopters, primarily medical transport and emergency rescue models. How many crashes have been attributed to this defect? 17 confirmed, including the crash that killed Sarah Ward, wife of Marcus Ward, who is present in this chamber today. Every head in the room turned toward Marcus. He kept his eyes forward, his jaw tight. "Miss Hale, were you aware of any of this before the events of last month?" "No, Senator. I believed my father was an honorable man. I believed our company was saving lives, not taking them." Victoria's voice cracked slightly. "I was wrong. And what steps have you taken since learning the truth?" "We have grounded every affected aircraft. We have issued a complete recall. We have cooperated fully with the FAA, the FBI, and this committee. And we have established a compensation fund for the families of all victims." She paused. "We cannot bring back the people who died. But we can make sure their deaths were not in vain. We can rebuild this company on a foundation of truth and safety. We can prove that corporations can be held accountable, that the powerful are not above the law." "That's a noble sentiment, Miss Hale. But actions speak louder than words." "Yes, Senator, they do." Victoria looked directly at Marcus. "Which is why I've appointed Marcus Ward as our new head of safety operations. A man who lost his wife to our negligence. A man who fought for justice for 10 years and was ignored. A man who, despite having every reason to hate my family, saved my life not once but twice." She turned back to the committee. "If we're serious about change, we need people like Marcus Ward holding us accountable. People who won't look the other way. People who understand that behind every safety report, behind every certification, there are human lives at stake." The hearing went on for another 3 hours. Testimony from engineers, regulators, lawyers. Richard Burke was brought in shackled and pale, refusing to answer questions on advice of counsel. But the moment that stuck with Marcus was Victoria's testimony. The way she'd looked at him when she said his name. The way she'd taken responsibility for sins she hadn't committed. The way she'd chosen truth over legacy. Maybe she really was different from her father. Maybe people could change. That night, Marcus took Lily to Sarah's grave. It was the first time he'd visited since the funeral. 10 years of avoiding this place, afraid of what it would make him feel. But tonight, he needed to be here. The headstone was simple. Sarah Ann Ward, beloved wife and mother. The dates of her birth and death. Nothing about how she died. Nothing about why. "Hey, Sarah," Marcus said quietly. "It's been a while." Lily stood beside him, holding a bouquet of wildflowers they'd picked on the way. "I brought someone to meet you. Well, you already know her, but she's bigger now. 8 years old. Can you believe it?" Marcus's voice wavered. "She looks just like you. Acts like you, too. Stubborn and smart and braver than anyone I've ever known." Lily placed the flowers on the grave. "Hi, Mom. I miss you." Marcus put his hand on her shoulder. "I found out the truth, Sarah. About what really happened. About Burke and Hale and all of it. They're going to prison. All of them. And the woman who runs the company now, Victoria, she's different. She told the truth. She shut everything down. She's trying to make it right." He paused, struggling to find the words. "I know you'd want me to move on. To stop being angry all the time. To be happy." He wiped his eyes. "I'm trying. It's hard. But I'm trying." Lily squeezed his hand. "Tell her about the job." "The job. Right." Marcus took a breath. "I got a job offer. Head of safety operations at Hale Aviation. The company that killed you." He laughed bitterly. "I know. It sounds crazy. But Victoria, she wants to rebuild it. Make it better. And she wants me to help. To make sure no one else dies the way you died." He knelt down and touched the cold stone. "I think I'm going to take it. Not for revenge, not for money, but because you would have wanted me to help people. That's what you were doing on that helicopter, right? Flying to help someone who was sick. That's who you were. Who you always were." Tears streamed down his face. He didn't wipe them away. "I loved you, Sarah. I still love you. I always will. But I can't live in the past anymore. I have to move forward. For Lily. For myself. For everyone who's still counting on me. He stood up slowly, his legs aching from kneeling. Goodbye, Sarah. I'll come back. I promise. But not to mourn anymore. To remember, to celebrate, to tell you all the good things that are happening. Lily took his hand. That was good, Dad. You think so? Mom would be proud of you. Marcus looked at his daughter, her mother's eyes shining in the fading light. I hope so, baby girl. I really hope so. 2 weeks later, Marcus started his new job. The Hale Aviation headquarters looked different now. The logo had been changed. The executive floor had been gutted and rebuilt. Victoria had moved her office to a smaller space on a lower floor, saying she didn't need all that room. Marcus walked through the building on his first day past engineers and technicians who eyed him with a mixture of curiosity and respect. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone knew what he'd done. Mr. Ward. A young woman approached him with a tablet. I'm Jessica, your assistant. Miss Hale asked me to show you to your office. I have an assistant, and an office, and a staff of 12 engineers who report directly to you. Marcus shook his head. I was a radar technician 2 months ago. Now you're the most important person in this building besides Miss Hale herself. Jessica smiled. If it helps, everyone here is terrified of you. Terrified. Why? Because you're the man who can shut down any project ground, any aircraft, and fire anyone who cuts corners on safety. Miss Hale made that very clear. Marcus nodded slowly. Good. They should be a little scared. His office was modest, a corner room with windows overlooking the city. On the desk was a framed photograph already placed there. Him, Sarah, and baby Lily, taken 3 months before Sarah died. Victoria stood in the doorway. I found it in our archives. One of the investigators had it in the original case file. I thought you might want it back. Marcus picked up the photograph. His hands were steady. Thank you. There's something else. Victoria walked in and closed the door behind her. The FBI finished their analysis of the black box from your wife's helicopter. Marcus set down the photograph. And the navigation system didn't just fail, it was triggered remotely. Burke had a device installed that could cause a malfunction on command. He used it on Sarah's helicopter when he found out she was carrying documents to the Seattle Times. Marcus felt the room tilt. He grabbed the edge of the desk. She wasn't just killed, he said slowly. She was assassinated. Yes. She was trying to expose them, and they murdered her for it. Yes. Marcus closed his eyes. The rage he'd felt on the rooftop came flooding back. The desire to hurt someone. To make them pay. But Burke was already paying. He was sitting in a federal prison facing multiple life sentences. There was nothing more Marcus could do to him. I need a minute, Marcus said. Of course. Victoria turned to leave. Victoria? She stopped. Sarah would have liked you. She believed in people, believed they could change, believed in second chances. Marcus opened his eyes. I'm starting to believe that too. Victoria's expression softened. I'm glad. Don't make me regret it. I won't. She left. Marcus sat down at his desk and stared at the photograph of his family. Sarah's smile, Lily's tiny hands, his own face younger and happier before grief had carved lines into his skin. I'm finishing what you started, he whispered. I promise. The weeks turned into months. Marcus threw himself into the job. He reviewed every safety protocol, every engineering report, every piece of equipment that came through the company. He hired new inspectors, implemented new testing procedures, and created a whistleblower program that guaranteed protection for anyone who reported problems. Some people pushed back. Engineers who thought he was being too cautious. Executives who complained about delays and costs. Marcus listened to their concerns, then did what he thought was right anyway. You're making enemies, Victoria warned him one evening. They were working late reviewing designs for a new helicopter model. Good. If they're angry at me, it means I'm doing my job. Some of them are talking about going to the board, trying to get you removed. Let them try. Marcus didn't look up from the documents. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make sure no one else dies. Victoria leaned back in her chair. You know, when I first offered you this job, I thought you'd say no. I thought the hatred ran too deep. It did. Maybe it still does a little. Marcus finally looked up. But hatred doesn't bring anyone back. Doesn't fix anything. The only thing that matters is what we do with the time we have left. That's wise. I have an 8-year-old. She makes me seem wiser than I am. Victoria laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and unguarded. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. How is Lily? Victoria asked. Good. Happy. She likes her new school. Made a bunch of friends. Does she still want to be a pilot? No. Now she wants to be a safety engineer. Says she wants to make sure helicopters never hurt anyone ever again. Marcus smiled. I think she's been spending too much time at the office. There are worse role models than her father. I'm not a role model. I'm just a guy who got lucky. You got shot in the shoulder and nearly bled to death on a rooftop. Like I said, lucky. Victoria shook her head, but she was still smiling. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of everything they'd been through hanging between them. Marcus. Yeah. I'm glad you took the job. Me too. And I'm glad you survived. All of it. The crash, the bullet, the years of grief. Marcus looked at her. In the soft light of the office, she looked different than she had on the mountain. Less guarded, more human. I'm glad too, he said quietly. They went back to work, but something had changed. Marcus could feel it. The beginning of something he wasn't ready to name. But for the first time in 10 years, he wasn't afraid of what came next. A year passed. Marcus stood at the window of his office watching the sun set over Seattle. The city lights were beginning to flicker on one by one, like stars coming out at dusk. Behind him, the walls were covered with safety certifications, inspection reports, and photographs of the new helicopter models that had passed his rigorous standards. You're going to miss the ceremony if you keep standing there. He turned. Victoria stood in the doorway, dressed in a simple black dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked different than she had a year ago. Softer somehow. Less burdened. Just thinking, Marcus said. About what? About how much has changed. A year ago, I was watching radar screens in a control tower trying not to think about the past. Now I'm here, doing this. Regretting it? No. Marcus turned back to the window. Just trying to understand it. Victoria walked over and stood beside him. Their shoulders almost touched. The board approved the new safety protocols today, she said. Every single recommendation you made. Full implementation across all divisions. I heard. Jessica told me. She also told me you threatened to resign if they didn't approve the whistleblower protections. I didn't threaten. I informed. You slammed your hand on the table and said, and I quote, "If you want to keep building death traps, you'll do it without me." Marcus shrugged. That's informing. Aggressively. Victoria laughed. It was a sound Marcus had come to look forward to, warm and genuine, so different from the composed businesswoman he'd met on that mountain. We should go, she said. Lily's waiting. The ceremony was held at St. Haven Airport in the new hangar Victoria had built to honor the victims of Hale Aviation's negligence. The building was state-of-the-art, all glass and steel, but at its center stood something more meaningful, a memorial wall with the names of everyone who had died because of the defective navigation systems. Sarah Ann Ward was the first name on the list. Marcus stood before the wall, his hand pressed against the cold stone. Lily stood beside him, taller now than she'd been a year ago. Her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, her expression solemn. Mom's name is so high up, Lily said. They put them in chronological order. She was one of the first. Does that make it worse or better? Neither. It just is. Lily reached up and traced the letters of her mother's name with her finger. I wish I remembered her better. I was so young when she died. What do you remember? Her voice. She used to sing to me at night. And her smell. Like flowers and something else. Something warm. Lavender. She loved lavender. Yeah. Lily smiled sadly. Lavender? Victoria approached them quietly, giving them space, waiting until Marcus turned to acknowledge her. They're ready for you, she said. If you want to say something. Marcus looked at the crowd gathered behind them. Engineers, pilots, executives, families of victims, reporters with cameras and microphones, federal officials who had helped bring Burke to justice, Lily's teacher who had driven all the way from St. Haven to be here. I'm not good at speeches, Marcus said. You don't have to be good. You just have to be honest. Marcus took a breath. He walked to the podium that had been set up in front of the memorial wall. The crowd fell silent. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that everything is okay now, Marcus began. It's not. The people whose names are on this wall are still gone. Their families are still grieving. No amount of justice, no amount of money, no amount of reform can bring them back. He paused, gathering his thoughts. My wife Sarah is on that wall. She died 10 years ago flying a helicopter that her company knew was dangerous. She died trying to help people, the same thing she did every day of her life. And for 10 years I was angry. I was so angry I could barely function. I wanted revenge. I wanted someone to pay. His voice cracked. He steadied himself. I got justice. Richard Burke is in prison. The truth is out. The company that killed Sarah is being rebuilt from the ground up. But you know what? It doesn't feel the way I thought it would. I thought justice would fill the hole in my chest. I thought it would make the grief go away. It didn't. Marcus looked at Lily standing in the front row. She nodded at him. Keep going, Dad. What filled the hole wasn't revenge. It was purpose. It was waking up every day and working to make sure no one else has to stand where I'm standing. No one else has to explain to their child why Mommy isn't coming home. No one else has to carry the weight I've carried for the past decade. He turned to look at the memorial wall. These names represent failures. Failures of engineering. Failures of oversight. Failures of conscience. But they also represent something else. They represent the reason we're here today. The reason this company is changing. The reason I get out of bed every morning and fight for better safety standards. Marcus faced the crowd again. I'm not going to promise you that accidents will never happen again. They will. We're human. We make mistakes. But I can promise you this, as long as I'm breathing, I will do everything in my power to make sure those mistakes are never hidden, never ignored, never allowed to kill innocent people. Because someone decided profits were more important than lives. He stepped back from the podium. That's all I have to say. Thank you. The applause started slowly, then built to a roar. Marcus walked back to Lily and Victoria, his legs shaking, his heart pounding. That was amazing, Dad, Lily whispered, hugging him tight. I didn't know what I was going to say until I said it. That's the best kind of speech. Victoria touched his arm. You're a natural. I'm really not. Fine. You're a terrible public speaker who happens to make everyone cry and want to be better people. She smiled. Better. Much. The reception afterward was crowded and loud. Marcus shook hands with dozens of people, accepted condolences and congratulations, posed for photographs he didn't want to take. Through it all, Lily stayed by his side, and Victoria was never far away. Around 9 o'clock, Marcus finally escaped to a quiet corner of the hangar. He leaned against the wall, exhausted, watching the crowd from a distance, hiding. Victoria appeared beside him, 2 glasses of water in her hands. She offered him one. Recovering, Marcus said. There's a difference. You know, a year ago you could barely stand to be in the same room with me. A year ago I didn't know you. And now, Marcus looked at her. The question hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning neither of them had acknowledged. Now I know you, he said quietly, and I'm grateful. Grateful for what? For you being different than I expected. For you choosing truth over legacy. For you giving me a chance to do something meaningful with all this pain. Victoria set down her glass. Marcus, can I tell you something? Go ahead. When you pulled me out of that helicopter, when you saved my life, I thought you were just some random good Samaritan. A hero in the right place at the right time. But when I found out who you were, what my family had done to you, I felt something I'd never felt before. What? Shame. Real shame. Not the kind you feel when you make a mistake. The kind you feel when you realize everything you believed about your life was a lie. She paused. And then you showed me the files. You told me the truth. And instead of destroying me with it, you gave me a chance to make it right. I almost didn't. There was a moment on that mountain when I thought about letting you die. I know. You know, I saw it in your eyes when you first reached the helicopter. There was a moment when you hesitated. I didn't understand it then. Now I do. Marcus looked away. I'm not proud of that moment. You should be. What? You should be proud. Because you had every reason to walk away. Every justification. Every excuse. And you didn't. You chose to save me anyway. Victoria took his hand. That's not weakness, Marcus. That's strength. The hardest kind of strength there is. Marcus felt her fingers intertwine with his. Her hand was warm, soft. Victoria. I'm not asking for anything, she said quickly. I know it's complicated. I know there's history between us, terrible history. I know I'm the last person you should have feelings for. Who said anything about feelings? Your daughter, about 6 months ago. She told me you smile more when I'm around. Marcus groaned. I'm going to kill her. She also said Sarah would want you to be happy. That love isn't a pie. She really needs to stop sharing my personal business. She's 9. 9-year-olds don't understand boundaries. She understood them fine when she was 8. Victoria laughed. Then her expression grew serious. I meant what I said, Marcus. I'm not asking for anything. But I want you to know that if you ever wanted to try, if you ever felt ready, I would be honored. Honored? To be loved by a man like you? Yes. Marcus stared at her. A year of working together. A year of late nights and early mornings. A year of watching her fight for the truth, rebuild a company, honor the victims of her father's crimes. A year of feeling something he'd told himself he would never feel again. I'm not easy, he said finally. I have nightmares. I wake up angry for no reason. I spend too much time at work and not enough time being present. I know. I'm stubborn and opinionated, and I hold grudges for way too long. I know that too. And I'm never going to stop loving Sarah. She'll always be part of me. Part of us, if there's an us. Victoria squeezed his hand. I would never ask you to stop loving her. She's the reason you are who you are. She's the reason Lily is who she is. I'm not competing with a ghost Marcus. I'm asking if there's room for something new alongside everything you've already got. Marcus thought about Sarah. About the life they'd built together, cut short by greed and lies. About the decade of grief that followed. About Lily growing up without a mother becoming the strongest person he knew. And he thought about Victoria. About the woman who'd crashed into his life literally and changed everything. About her courage, her honesty, her willingness to sacrifice everything for the truth. There's room, he said quietly. I think there's always been room. I was just too scared to look. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? She leaned in and kissed him. It was gentle, tentative, a question more than a statement. Marcus answered by pulling her closer, by letting himself feel something he'd been running from for years. When they finally pulled apart, Lily was standing a few feet away, grinning from ear to ear. "Finally," she said. "I've been waiting forever for you two to figure it out." "You're supposed to be getting dessert," Marcus said, his face flushing. "I was. Then I saw you two being gross and decided to watch instead." "We were not being gross." "You were kissing. That's gross." Victoria laughed. "Fair point." Lily walked over and inserted herself between them, taking each of their hands. "So does this mean Victoria's going to be around more?" Marcus looked at Victoria. She looked back at him. Something passed between them, an understanding, a promise. "Yeah, baby girl," Marcus said. "I think it does." "Good." Lily nodded decisively. "Because I already told my friends at school that you two were getting married, and I didn't want to have to take it back." Lily. "What I was being proactive." 6 months later, they stood on the mountain where it all began. The ridge overlooking the crash site had been transformed. The wreckage was long gone, cleared away, and recycled. In its place, wildflowers bloomed in every direction, a carpet of color that stretched as far as the eye could see. Marcus, Victoria, and Lily hiked to the top together. The same path Marcus had carried Victoria down a year and a half ago, half dead, covered in blood. The same path where he'd made the choice that changed everything. "It's beautiful," Lily said, spinning around with her arms outstretched. "It doesn't look like a place where bad things happened." "Bad things happened everywhere," Marcus said. "That doesn't mean we can't make something beautiful out of them." Victoria stood at the edge of the ridge, looking out over the valley. Marcus walked over and stood beside her. "I've been thinking," she said. "About what?" "About building something here. A training facility. For rescue pilots. We could name it after Sarah." Marcus's throat tightened. "Victoria. We could teach them the techniques you used, how to fly in blizzards, how to pull people out of wreckage, how to never ever leave anyone behind." She turned to face him. "What do you think?" "I think Sarah would have loved that." "Then let's do it." Marcus took her hands. "There's something I want to do too." "What?" He dropped to one knee. Victoria's eyes went wide. "Marcus, I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks trying to find the right moment." He pulled a small box from his jacket pocket. "I had a whole speech planned, but I forgot it all the second you started talking about naming a building after Sarah." "You don't have to." "I want to. I want to do this. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, building things, fixing things, raising Lily together." He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, elegant and understated. "I know I'm not perfect. I know we have a complicated history. But I love you, Victoria. I love who you are and who you're becoming. And I want to become whoever I'm going to be right beside you." Victoria was crying. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling the biggest smile Marcus had ever seen. "Yes," she said. "Yes, yes, yes." Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Lily came running over. "Did she say yes? She said yes, right? I saw her crying, so she must have said yes." "She said yes, baby girl." Lily threw her arms around both of them. "This is the best day ever. Can I be the flower girl I want to be the flower girl? And I want to wear a purple dress, because purple was Mom's favorite color." Marcus held his daughter and his future wife on the mountain, where his old life had ended and his new life had begun. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The wildflowers swayed in the gentle breeze. He thought about Sarah, about the love they'd shared, the life they'd built, the dreams that had been cut short. He thought about the years of grief, the anger, the bitterness that had consumed him. And he thought about this moment, this impossible, improbable moment, standing in a field of flowers with his daughter and the woman he loved. Sarah would be happy. He knew that with absolute certainty. She would be happy that he'd finally let go of the past, happy that Lily had someone else to love and be loved by, happy that her death had led somehow to all of this. "Dad." Lily's voice pulled him back to the present. "Yeah, baby girl? Are you okay? You're crying." Marcus touched his face. She was right. Tears were streaming down his cheeks. "I'm okay," he said. "I'm better than okay." "Then why are you crying?" "Because sometimes when you're really happy you cry. Your mom used to do that too." Lily nodded seriously. "I remember. She cried at my kindergarten graduation. She cried at everything. Commercials, sunsets. That one song about the farmer and the city girl." Victoria laughed through her own tears. "What song?" "I'll play it for you sometime. It's ridiculous. She loved it." They stood there together as the sun sank below the horizon. The air grew cool. The first stars began to appear. "We should head back," Victoria said. "It's getting dark." "In a minute." Marcus pulled them both closer. "I just want to remember this. All of it. The way the sky looks, the way the flowers smell, the way you both feel right here, right now." "Why?" Lily asked. "Because this is the moment everything changed. This is the moment our family started. We were already a family, Dad. You and me. We were. And now we're bigger. That's how families work. They grow. They change. They become something new without forgetting what they used to be." Victoria rested her head on his shoulder. "That was beautiful." "Don't get used to it. I'm not usually this eloquent." "I know. That's what makes it special." They walked back down the mountain together, hand in hand in hand. The path was easier going down than coming up. The stars grew brighter. The night grew quieter. At the bottom of the trail, their cars waited in a small parking area. Marcus paused and looked back up at the ridge, now just a dark silhouette against the sky. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" Victoria asked. "Not you, Sarah." He took a breath. "Thank you for loving me. Thank you for giving me Lily. Thank you for being brave enough to fight for the truth, even when it cost you everything. And thank you for leading me here, to this moment, to this family, to this life I never thought I'd have." The wind picked up slightly, rustling the leaves of the nearby trees. It almost sounded like a whisper, a reply. Lily tugged at his hand. "Dad, I'm hungry." "You're always hungry. Growing takes energy." "She's got you there," Victoria said. Marcus laughed. He opened the car door for Lily, then walked around to help Victoria into the passenger seat. "Where do you want to go for dinner?" he asked. "Somewhere with good burgers," Lily called from the back seat. "And milkshakes, definitely milkshakes." "The woman has spoken," Victoria said. Marcus started the engine. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the road ahead. He looked in the rearview mirror at Lily, already scrolling through her phone for restaurant options. He looked at Victoria, adjusting the ring on her finger, a small smile on her face. He thought about everything that had brought him to this moment. The crash, the fire, the years of grief, the confrontation with Burke, the bullet in his shoulder, the rooftop where he'd almost died, the congressional hearings, the new job, the slow, painful process of learning to trust again. All of it had led here, to this car, to these people, to this life. "Dad," Lily's voice again. "Yeah, baby girl, I love you. I love you too." And Victoria. "Yeah, Lily, I love you too, even though you're going to make me have a bedtime now." Victoria laughed. "We'll negotiate. That's what I'm afraid of. You're really good at negotiating." The car pulled out of the parking area and onto the main road. The mountain disappeared behind them. The town lights appeared ahead. Marcus drove in comfortable silence, listening to Lily and Victoria debate the merits of various burger joints. His hands were steady on the wheel. His heart was full. 10 years ago, he had lost everything. His wife, his career, his sense of purpose. He had spent a decade drowning in grief, convinced that he would never feel whole again. He had been wrong. Life had a way of surprising you, of breaking you down and building you back up, of leading you to places you never expected to, people you never knew you needed. Marcus Ward had learned that the hard way. He had learned it through fire and ice, through loss and love, through the long, dark night of grief and the slow dawn of healing. But he had learned it. That was what mattered. The restaurant was crowded when they arrived. They waited 20 minutes for a table, Lily complaining the entire time about how she was going to waste away to nothing if she didn't get a cheeseburger immediately. Victoria showed her pictures on her phone of the wedding venues she'd been researching. Marcus stood back and watched them, his 2 girls, his family, his future. When they finally sat down, Lily ordered the biggest burger on the menu. Victoria ordered a salad, then stole half of Lily's fries. Marcus ordered coffee, black, and sat there sipping it, while the people he loved most in the world argued about wedding colors. "Purple," Lily insisted. "It has to be purple." "How about lavender?" Victoria suggested. "It's a type of purple, but more subtle." Lily considered this. Lavender was Mom's favorite. "I know, your dad told me." "Then lavender is perfect." Lily grinned. "See, Dad? We're already making good decisions." Marcus set down his coffee. "You're already making decisions. I'm just sitting here. And that's your job, to sit there and pay for things." "Is that so?" "Victoria told me. She said in weddings the groom's main job is to show up and not mess anything up." Victoria shrugged innocently. "I may have mentioned something like that." "Great. I love being unnecessary." "You're not unnecessary," Victoria said, reaching across the table to take his hand. "You're the most necessary person in this family. We're just giving you an easy job so you don't get overwhelmed." Marcus looked at his future wife, at his daughter, at the life spread out before him like a road he was finally ready to travel. "I can handle hard jobs," he said. "I've handled a few already." "We know, Dad." Lily rolled her eyes affectionately. "You've told us, many times." "Have I mentioned the burning helicopter?" "Only about 1,000 times." "What about the bullet wound?" "Dad, we get it. You're a hero. I'm just saying." "You're a hero who likes to talk about being a hero. It's fine. We love you anyway." Victoria laughed so hard she nearly choked on her water. Marcus pretended to be offended, but he was smiling too. This was his life now, teasing and laughter. Wedding planning and burger dinners. A daughter who kept him humble, and a woman who made him believe in second chances. It wasn't the life he'd planned. It wasn't the life he'd expected. But it was the life he'd been given. The life he'd fought for. The life he'd earned through fire and blood and years of grief. And he wouldn't trade it for anything. They finished dinner around 10. Lily fell asleep in the car on the way home, her head resting against the window, her breathing slow and steady. Victoria reached over and took Marcus's hand. "Happy?" she asked. "Yeah," Marcus said. "I really am." "Good. You deserve it." "Do I?" "More than anyone I know." Marcus pulled into the driveway of the house they'd bought together 6 months ago. It wasn't fancy, a simple 2-story in a quiet neighborhood, but it was theirs, a fresh start, a new beginning. He carried Lily inside and tucked her into bed. She murmured something in her sleep, something that sounded like lavender, and smiled. Victoria waited for him in the hallway. When he closed Lily's door, she pulled him into a hug. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For giving me a family. For letting me be part of yours. For not giving up on me even when you had every reason to." Marcus held her tight. He thought about the mountain, the fire, the choice he'd made to save the daughter of the man who'd destroyed his life. He'd thought it was a moment of weakness, a failure to act on his revenge. Now he knew it was the strongest thing he'd ever done. "I love you," he said. "I love you too." They stood there in the quiet hallway, holding each other, listening to the sound of Lily's breathing through the door. Outside, the stars were bright. The wind was still. The world was at peace, and Marcus Ward, who had spent 10 years believing he would never be whole again, finally understood what Sarah had been trying to tell him all along. Love wasn't a pie. You didn't run out of it. You could love as many people as your heart had room for. And his heart, broken and healed and broken and healed again, had room for so much more than he'd ever imagined. He walked Victoria to their bedroom. He kissed her goodnight. He lay down beside her in the dark, listening to her breathe, feeling her warmth against his side. Tomorrow, there would be work. Challenges, problems to solve, and battles to fight. The world didn't stop spinning just because you found happiness. But tonight, there was peace. Tonight, there was love. Tonight, Marcus Ward was exactly where he was supposed to be. And for the first time in 10 years, no one had been left behind.